Going live for the first time. This is very exciting. Please be kind. I don't know how this all works, and so I'm going to figure this all out. But I wanted to test going live, so this is a new experience for me. My daughter carved this pumpkin for me as a gift for my birthday, and I just absolutely loved the look of it. I loved the fact that it just epitomizes her, and so I wanted to paint it because I wanted to memorialize it. It's already started to rot, the flowers have already faded, but I just thought it was so absolutely beautiful. So I put it up in my still life box, and I went ahead and I created this reference image, and now I want to put it into a painting. Now I've gone ahead and I've done a little bit of the background work of this, and this is zoomed in a little bit, so hopefully you can see the painting here. I've mixed a couple of my colors. If I just go in here and remove this, you can see that I've got my palette all laid out. I've mixed some of the colors for my pumpkin, so that's where I'm going to start. And typically I work in a very tight controlled style, and I wanted to try something a little bit different. I wanted to see if I could loosen up just a little bit and create this just a little bit more painterly than what I'm typically used to. And so that is going to be my what I'm gonna start doing here. That's what I'm planning to do. So just kind of do it in a loose style and see how it goes. So I've got all of my paintbrushes here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. I think what I'm gonna do for this one is I'm gonna work in a bit more of a direct painting approach, where I'm going to be laying in the kind of my darkest values and moving up to my lighter values, resolving my edges as I go, not really paying too close attention to my edges. I wanted to leave this one just a little bit more painterly, and so that's going to be what I'm going to try to do. So yeah, let's get started. So this is my shadow value. Now, if you're curious about any of the colors that I have here, I'm working in Old Holland paint. I do have a couple of Winsor Newton's colors on my palette as well too, and if anybody's interested, you can go ahead and drop it in the chat and I can let you know which colors that I have on my palette. But I'm mostly working with Old Holland Oil Paints, and Old Holland bleached linseed oil is what I use to paint. And I am working in oils. So I'm just gonna start. I need actually my reference because I don't have my reference in front of me, so I actually need that up there so I can see it. So I'm just gonna basically start just laying in my shadows and getting these kind of locked in. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this color, to be honest. I don't know if it's too light, but we're just gonna lay it in and see how it fits in the context. Sometimes you just gotta lay it in. And so I'm just going in here and just filling in my shadows, paying attention to where I can. Now I do have an issue with usually going in a little bit too tight. I like to work very controlled, and I'm trying to avoid that. So it's going to be a little bit of a task for me, I think, today, just to try to really let it be what it is when it comes off the brush rather than overworking it. So I simplified my palette here and really tried to keep it simple where I could. Just to try to make this process a little bit easier. Now I have to try to figure out what my lines were representing here. So this is coming in here. We've got a little bit of a shadow that peeks over there. And then we're going in here. Like I mentioned, this is my first live, and I just decided to, I set this up today just to make sure I could kind of have a way to set it up, but I have no idea how to use most of these settings, so I hope that everyone can hear me, and I hope that everyone can see everything that I'm doing and that my microphone is working. It looks like it is, but just if you want to drop in the chat and just let me know that you can all hear me and see me okay. That would be really, really great. Just help me out here. This is, like I mentioned, my very first live. I have a couple of paintings I want to start going live more often, but it's something that I haven't tried before. So I thought, well, in the spirit of Halloween, let's do something that scares me, right? Let's do something spooky. Let's go live. So that's what we're doing. So I have no idea if anybody is here. I can't see if anybody is watching. I can see the chat, so if you go ahead and drop something in the chat, then I should be able to see it and I can respond, which would be cool. So I'm just going to drop this shadow in over here. This kind of comes in like this, kind of dances around this edge here a little bit. There we go. I'm just going to bring that in. And again, I'm going to constantly remind myself that I'm not doing this super tight. I'm doing this relaxed. We're just seeing what comes off the brush and being a little bit more loose with it. And like I mentioned, that's going to be a little bit of a struggle. It is not the way that I have been painting lately. And so it's going to be definitely a challenge. All right, so the shadow kind of starts to open up as it moves down along the mouth here. So I want to leave that area for now. I just want to get in some of these darkest shadow values where I see them. Now this one in the inlet here is just a little bit lighter than what we're seeing here. So I can do that, but I feel like some of these shadows, even in the nose, are a little bit lighter as well too. Okay, so we're gonna leave that there, and then I'm gonna actually I'll go in here and I'll show you my palette. So this was the shadow value that I'm using. So I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna just create a little admixture in between here. Just as I get slightly lighter. If I go back to my reference image, let's see here. Yeah, so, well, actually, I feel like this is actually fairly similar to the values in here. So I'm actually just going to lay this color in here. See how this goes. It is a little bit more orange. So I might actually, well, we'll see. I can always lay in a little bit more orange once I get into the pumpkin color a little bit there. So again, for anybody that maybe didn't hear the story of where this pumpkin came from, my daughter actually made this pumpkin for me for my birthday, which is in October. And it was just so sweet, and I feel like it just really epitomizes her. And so it's really was just, the longer it sat on my table, the longer I thought, oh my goodness, this is just absolutely fabulous. And I have to capture this. I have to make sure that I memorialize this, because it just, there's something about it that my husband said too. He said, it just kind of looks like her. It's just, there's something about it that's just her. And I thought that was just fabulous. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to capture it and to be able to have it. And now I'll have a nice Halloween pumpkin for decorating with. I often don't have a lot of Halloween decorations that I put up in my house, and so now I will have a painting that I can use as a Halloween decoration, which is going to be fun. So I'm excited about that. All right. Just trying to pay attention to these shadows actually lighten up quite a bit, so I think I may move to a lighter color here. Let's move one up here. So I did go ahead and I mixed all of my colors beforehand, because I just wanted to make sure that I had as much set in place as I navigated this crazy world of going live, that I had at least something prepared. So going ahead and just putting in some of my shadows, as these kind of creep up. Now these are going to become gradients because we're kind of got the light like coming over here, and then we've got these edges. So I just want to, I kind of know where I'm going with it. So I want to make sure that I have everything I need in place. Again, trying not to be super particular about my edges, which is difficult for me because I like to work in a very controlled way. Typically, and this is not going to be that. So at least I'm trying very hard to not let it be that. So I did go in and I put in the background beforehand. I kept it my still life box. This is the still life box that I have in my studio. I do have a video on my channel. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, where I actually built my still life box. I still use it all the time. I love still lifes. And so if you are an artist and you would like to build a still life box, you can go ahead and check that out. It's a really fantastic way to control the light. So as an artist, when like this pumpkin, I set it up, I knew that I wanted to have a really nice sense of light and shadow. And in order to do that, I needed to be able to place it in an area where I was able to control the light. And so only have one light source, and I could really decide how I wanted the light to move around the pumpkin. And I don't know if you can tell, and I'll maybe just enlarge this reference image here on the screen, but you can kind of see there's a jar inside of it where it is actually holding the water for the it's holding the water for the flowers. And I love the way the light just kind of illuminated, hit off the back of the pumpkin and illuminated that a little bit, as well as the light, the way that it just like created this beautiful like light moment here on the mouth, and just the way that it hit the flowers, and the fact that we've got some of the feathers that are on this side in and out of the, oops, hitting my camera, in and out of the light, I thought was just really dynamic. So having a control still life lighting, like a box light, where you're able to go in and place the objects in a box and create the light exactly the way that you want it, is so much power as an artist. It helps to be able to make sure that you're getting exactly what you want in a really controlled environment. So if you haven't worked with a still life box before, I definitely recommend it. They're very fun and a nice, easy way to kind of get the results that you're looking for. If you know what it is that you're looking for, right? If you know how you want the light to hit and you know the look that you're going for, it can be a really great way to create that. So I'm just trying to go in. This is a little bit difficult typically, because I've got this all set up. I would typically go in and I would rotate my canvas to get some of these edges, but that would require a lot of work to change all of my camera angles to get that to happen. So let me just see what the shape of the pumpkin is doing here along the bottom. I think we've got a bit of a ridge like that, and I'm picking up a little bit of that extreme shadow that I've got there as a cast shadow on the tabletop here. So I think that's fairly good. Now this shadow is really kind of in this eye and in this nose here, so I want to make sure that I'm getting that established here as well. And you notice that I'm not being super painterly with my edges. I'm not being super delicate with my edges. I'm not like blending it so that it's, you know, powder soft, but I think I'm going to go in and be a little bit more textured with my light values, and hopefully that'll help just bring the dynamism of this painting to life. So all right, let's just go ahead and fill this shadow in. Again, I'm trying to remind myself, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be super particular. You don't have to be super particular. It's difficult. When you get set into painting a specific way and you've painted that way for a very long time, it's hard to kind of loosen out those cobwebs. All right. So I think I am going to go in and I'm going to add some slightly darker values just in the inside here, because it does get a little bit darker. So I'm just going to go back to my shadow value here that I put on this side of the pumpkin and just create a little bit of a darker shadow in there just to kind of get that, just a little bit of interest in that shadow. I don't want too much, right? My shadows don't need to be super interesting. It's really the lights where this painting is going to shine, but I just want a little bit of something in there. All right. Now I want to make sure that I get that shadow in the nose as well. Typically I would have this printed out and I would be working off of a printed reference, but today I just didn't have the time to do that, and this painting, I took a picture of it just a little while ago, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to wait for it to get printed. I just want to paint this. I just want to paint it. So I matched it, color matched it off of a screen, which is not ideal. It's not what I'd love to do. It's not how I typically like working, but it's going to work for this. And to be honest, I have this reference. It's my reference. I can repaint this at any time that I like in any style that I like. And that is absolutely available to me. Okay. So I have to remember, now I do need to enlarge this just because this is the only reference that I can see. So I want to make sure that I am seeing everything that I need to in terms of where my shadows. Now I do need to add, my shadow in here. So I'm gonna go in and make sure that I place in this shadow here as well too. My brush is getting a little dry here, so I'm just gonna grab some linseed oil. So the shadow comes across here like this. I want to go down in here. Cool. And this one goes across like this. And across like this. And then I think that's that shadow. Now these shadows are quite a bit lighter in value, so we're not quite there yet. But I do need to add a little bit of this color here, just into here as we start to kind of create this gradient that's happening here. And then as these shadows, as we deal with this, just these ridges of the pumpkin that are happening. Now most of these aren't necessarily shadows. A lot of them are slightly darker areas of the light, but I want to make sure that any of those slightly darker values in there, that I have them into place. Most of the light's going to come up and bump up against that, which is going to be okay. Now the other place I do need to put some shadows is the cast shadows along under the flowers here. You can see that they're, because those shadows are taking place on the pumpkin, they are the same shadow value as the pumpkin, and I forgot to add those up here. And those are kind of my darkest shadows on the pumpkin itself, and so I need to make sure that I'm getting that. So I'm just wiping my brush, making sure that it's nice and clean so that I can grab a slightly darker value here. Now, if there is anybody, if this did actually make it, you know, I pressed the right sequence of buttons and this is actually on YouTube, go ahead and drop something in the chat so I know that someone's watching. That would be really cool. It would be lovely to see who made it out on this Hallows Eve, you know, the night before Halloween. My kids are off at a Halloween party, so the house is actually quiet, which is why I decided, okay, let's experiment. Let's see if we can go live. So part of why I'm here. All right, let's get this shadow. And this kind of follows the shape of these flowers. Now I have way too big of a brush to be doing this with, so I probably should move to a smaller brush, but am I going to? Probably not. Probably not. We're just going to make a hash of it, and I'll clean up the edges when I get to my lights. I can create the shape of those cast shadows. I have a little bit of a shadow there. Kind of lost my transfer lines, but that's okay. All right, and then I also want to make sure that I get in this. There's like the pumpkin was scored, and so I want to make sure that I need to make this just a little bit bigger so I can see what's happening here. Yeah, so we've got, there we go. So we've got a sharp edge on the top. Like that. All the way down, and then we've got just a tiny bit of a shadow on this side here. Kind of like that. Cool. And I think for this stream, I'm gonna just paint the pumpkin, and then maybe if all goes well or whatever, if we need to, then I can do another one for the foliage and for the flowers. I'm so excited to get into that because I just want to I want to get the colors right, but I want to do it in just a fun way, and it just looks like so much fun to paint. So I just want to go in actually and blend, because this is actually a gradient here where the light's moving from light into shadow over here, and so I want to make sure that I blend this edge and make it nice and soft. And I'm going to add, again, I'm going to go in with some light values so that can also go in and grade this just a little bit further. So yeah, we kind of have a slip of light that comes here, so I want to maybe just put a slightly lighter shadow over here as well too, just something to blend into, something to stand in the way so that it's not a huge jump from one value to the next, because that makes it a lot harder to get a nice soft edge. If your values are nice and close, you can blend that edge a lot easier. So I want to make sure that I have that slightly lighter value there, so when I come in with the light, it's a little bit easier to make it soft and make it look like a gradient, in order to better explain just the form of the pumpkin, right? The way that the light is moving from one side over to the next. Okay, I think that's looking good so far. Do I have everything into place? I think so. So I think with this eye socket, I do have quite a bit of some lighter values. Now I do have a little bit of kind of this value. I want to put it right up in this corner here, although it is a little bit more, it's actually a little greenish. So I'm just gonna, here I can show you what I'm doing on my palette. So if I'm just going in here, this is the color that I'm using, but I actually, it's a little bit of the green of the flowers that's in the bottom there. And so I just want to have a little hint of that, because it is actually looking at greenery through a glass jar with the light shining through it. And so I want to make sure that I'm capturing just that slight shift in color. I'm still looking a little, here we go. So let's, that into place. Now, what am I doing? This is the edge of, is this the edge of the pumpkin? This is the edge of the jar. So I'm painting in the rug section. Look at that. Look at me go. Just messing it up. All right, let's, this is actually slightly darker in value. So this is actually the jar. And we've got, I'm glad I caught that before I contaminated this area, because this area here is slightly lighter. And so I want to make sure that I have that beautiful just capture of light that hits that side of that jar really well, because it's kind of one of the exciting things about the way that I set up this setting. So I want to make sure that I'm providing space for that. Now, I'm actually going to have to go capture my mul stick because now that I'm painted more of this, it's going to be harder to, there's nowhere to rest my hands any longer. So I like to use a mul stick when I paint. I find that it's really, really helpful. I'm actually just going to go grab it. It's right behind me here. And if you are a watcher of my channel, then you'll have seen that I actually DIY'd this mul stick. So if you're, oh, one of my kids put a needle on the top of it. Happy Halloween. They really stuck it in there. That's in there tight. But anyways, if you use a mul stick, if you're an artist and you want to use a mul stick, basically I just hang it over the top of my, I have my painting on a board, and I just hang it on the top of my board using this here. Like I just hang it like this, and then I'm able to rest my hand on it while I paint. That way I don't have to try to find a nice place for my pinky to rest, because I find that when I do that, I get like carpal tunnel. It really hurts my wrists when I constantly have my pinky extended like that. It seems to really hurt my wrists. So I find the mul stick is very helpful. Now, mul sticks can be quite expensive, but if you watch my channel, you'll know that I also have a video on how to create your own DIY mul stick where I show you how I made this one. So super cheap, very easy. You don't need a lot of material in order to be able to do it. So I'd highly recommend, if you paint a lot and you find that you have a hard time, smudging your painting, or you notice that your hands always get into it, then I would definitely recommend a mul stick. I think I use it every time I paint. It's very, very useful. Now, I don't have any of these things linked to my live because I've never gone live before. I'll figure out how to do that next time. But you can go ahead and check out my channel. You can see I've got a couple of DIYs for the still life box as well as for the mul stick, so you can go ahead and check those out. Those have kind of been very popular videos on my channel, I think, just because they are so helpful when it comes to painting and being able to do it yourself, and not have to have the big expense of going out and trying to find one, is really, really helpful. Okay, so I'm just looking at my reference, and I feel like this color that I've used was actually the color that I had mixed for in here, but I feel like it's actually slightly too chromatic, and so I need to desaturate it just a little bit. I'm going to do that by adding just a touch of my black, just to desaturate it just slightly, because I feel like this in here is just a little bit duller. I'm actually going to mix it with my gray of my tabletop. Hopefully that tabletop didn't overpower it too much. Yeah, but I feel like that's a better color. Cool. All right. We're getting there. It's coming along. I always have to fight with wanting to quickly put in my lights so that I can see the painting coming along, but I'm trying to remind myself that slow down at this part, it's going to look so much better when the lights go in, and it'll just be very exciting. Really bring it all together. Again, I don't know really why I'm sticking to this brush, but that's okay. It's just what I have on me. All right, now there is light over here, so I want to make sure I'm leaving a space for the light. And this comes up like this. Now, like I mentioned before, I am leaving my shadows a little bit flatter, like there's not a lot of texture or detail necessarily happening in my shadows, but that's because I want to build up the lights, and so in order for that to be hopefully a good contrast, I'm going to leave my shadows just a little bit flatter, leave them a little bit less interesting visually in order to really allow those lights to be the star of the show. Now I am working on a linen canvas sheet is what I'm working on. I prefer to work on linen. I love linen. I love the feel of it. I like the smoothness of it. I feel like it grabs the paint really well, and it's easy enough to work with. So I quite like linen. All right. Is this all of our shadows? Now this side here is quite a bit. This is, you know, part of it is still in shadow. And actually I think this color is going to be a great pick for that. But I've almost run out of it on my palette. I should have mixed more paint when it came to my shadow values. So maybe just remix this quickly because I do want it to be slightly lighter. So let me just show you my palettes. Where are we going with this? So this, I don't really remember how I created it, but we can recreate it, no problem. Pretty sure I used a touch of black in it. And then a lot more yellow. Like I mentioned before, I am using Old Holland. That's the brand of paint that I love using. It's very highly chromatic. It's really great paint to use. You can go a long way with it because it's very chromatic. So it's great. You know what? I'm actually looking at... Let me go back and see if I can see my reference here. Thinking of using just a little touch of my light value here. All right, so this is, now I know I realize I've got some bright lights here. It's kind of creating a lot of shine. Sorry about that. For this value in here, I like that it's slightly lighter. It's a little bit more chromatic and just slightly lighter. So I think this is going to be a good color for the inside here. So let's try this. All right, so let's see. Let me check this chat here, see how this... There we go. Change it to the live chat. I was just scared I was going to be missing messages there if it's only on the top chat. Okay. Let's go in and see if this is, yeah, I like that. It's just slightly, like I said, it's just a little bit lighter in value than this side, and just slightly more chromatic. And I feel like that fits really well with this side of the kind of the guts and inside of the pumpkin. And there is a little slip of light that hits there, and then we kind of have a bend here, so this is where we go into the shadow, and then it comes down a little bit like that. And again, like I mentioned, because I'm painting live and I've got this whole setup, I would typically flip my scene around and kind of make it work, but I'm just gonna establish this edge because it is carved and it's cut out, so it's going to be a nice solid edge. So I want to make sure that that looks nice and solid. And then I'm just going to go in and create just a slightly darker, I'm going to grab another brush. Grab a slightly darker value. Just to, this brush is too thick as well. All right, there we go. Get a nice fine tip on that. Just to kind of show this pumpkin edge, the fact that there's the skin has got a little bit of, casting a little bit of a shadow onto that area there. Okay. I feel like that's looking fairly good. Where else do we see this value? Now this shadow in here is kind of a mix of in between those two, so let's just gonna grab this and mix it together on my palette. Now this, oops, sorry, my nose got in the way there. It was very big. So let's get that in there. And then it kind of comes out like this. And it goes like this. And there's some little pops of light that are in there, but I'm going to get that when I move over to my light values and just add it kind of, just quite a bit more texture. All right. Trying to get all the dots of the canvas covered. And then we do have, there's a hit of light on that side, but that's light, so we're going to leave it like that. I think that's how that, let me just blow this up just a little bit just so I can see. Yeah. Kind of comes out like that. There we go. And again, I want to add just a little touch of this shadow. There's my mall stick against the edge here, just to kind of, again, we've got a little bit of a cast shadow that's happening on the edge there. And see how that just like pops it out 3D, just really makes that mouth start to, or that nose start to really come alive there. It's really cool. Okay, where else do we have shadow that we have not on the pumpkin that we haven't addressed? think that's everywhere. All right. So I do want to add a little bit more shadow value up in, no, we have it on our, so I'm going to move over now. Let me just actually minimize this just a little bit. Actually, we can keep it fairly big. But if I go over here, I can show you on my palette here, I've moved up over here. So these are my light values on my pumpkin. And so I'm going to start in here. This is kind of my transition value, kind of my buffer value for my pumpkin. And this is where I want to start to, if I can, start to like get a little bit bolder with my strokes, use a little bit more paint. You'll notice that I've mixed more paint for my lights than I have for my shadows because I wanted to do this in a little bit more of a painterly technique. Now it's been a while again, like I mentioned, since I've painted this way, so please bear with me. It's maybe a little rough, but we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out. So I also want to get this value in here. And again, I'll go in with some lights, but just kind of trying to create those areas of transition between my lights and my shadows with this value. This is kind of why I have this value on my palette. It's kind of a nice, and there's going to be a lot of that transition down here where we have gradient. We're really moving from like light into shadow, gradient, cast shadow kind of thing. So there we go. And this value is really like, it is a light value, but it's kind of my darkest light value. And so I want to make sure I get some of these grooves of the pumpkin with this value, because that's going to be what creates the ridges in the lights. Starting to look pretty menacing. All right, we also have that kind of in there. I'll probably need to go in and reestablish some of those and then reestablish this sharp edge here, but it's all good. All right. Just trying to squint my eyes at the reference to kind of see if there's any areas that I've missed. Maybe just up in here a little bit. Connect these ridges. And there is one up here, but that's a slightly lighter value, so I want to wait to get that in there. Okay, cool. So let's go in and move now to my next lighter value. Let's start laying this in. This is where we're really starting to see some color. Let's get some chroma going. Oh, my kids are home. All right, so now I'm just gonna bring this in here. I do have a slightly, again, I'm gonna wait to put in my lightest values, but if I pop just the lightest value right in there, it's just gonna really round that out. So excited about that. we're just gonna keep going here. Now really this looks very, on the like screen here, it's looking very chromatic, but in real life it's really actually quite dull compared to the other colors that I have on my palette. So it's funny, once you have it next to this white, it looks like it's just screaming orange, but it's actually really not. It's quite a muted color. It's just because of the context it's in. All right, so let's go back in here. Oh, I've got a chat. Hi, Victoria. So nice to see you. Thank you so much for chatting. You love this and you're in block 3. Very cool. So you're in the Evolve Art program. Very awesome. I'm the head instructor at the Evolve Artist art program. And so it's so exciting to see students here. Welcome, Victoria. I hope you enjoy. I'm kind of dabbling in between a block 3 and a block 4 technique, to be honest, but kind of with some block 7, which is our puddling block, which is where we get to be a little bit more free with our brush strokes. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get down to, or back to, because it's been a while since I've painted in a more painterly way. I've typically been very controlled in my painting. And so trying to loosen up just a little bit on this night before Halloween. Paint this. So for anybody that's jumped in after, you know, since I've started, I've been painting here for a while, but this pumpkin was a gift that my daughter made. So she carved the pumpkin and put the flowers in and stuff. She did it for my birthday. And it was just such a fabulous look to it. And I just loved the way that she carved it. And there was something about it that just looked a lot like her, and something about it that was just, it just epitomized her. And so I was like, I have to take a picture of this because of course it's a pumpkin and it's carved and it's already started to rot. And so I'm very glad that I put it in my still life box and decided to capture this moment that she created, which was just so beautiful and such a creative thing. I personally am a huge fan of homemade gifts. They're my absolute favorite. I don't need expensive things, but the fact that she took some time to create something for me was just beautiful, just beautiful. So I wanted to put it up in my still life box so I could create this painting, and I just love it. So now I'm going to have some Halloween art that I can have up in my house. For Halloween, I love, I don't know if you can see it, but I have a fireplace in my house that I love to redecorate and love to add things to. And so I like to switch it out for the seasons. And so painting is definitely going to go up here in my Halloween season. For sure. Okay, so I'm starting to get a little bit lighter now. I've kind of moved from this values in here, but as we're starting to move in here, it's starting to get slightly lighter, but we do have this value that kind of goes up along here and along here. But before I move away from this value and put another value on my brush, I want to make sure that I address these values in here because they're actually quite dark. And so I want to make sure that I'm getting that area of the mouth established before I move on to lighter values on my brush, because I don't want to start contaminating lighter values with darker values because of what's on my brush. So again, trying not to be too particular about it, but that's hard for me. So I'm just gonna get these into place. Now I'm gonna have to go back in and establish some sharp edges for sure, because I'm working pretty loosely here. I grab my mole stick here so that I can work on this side. Now this is very strange going live on YouTube because typically in the Evolve Artist program, I would go live with students and they would have the ability to throw on their microphones and ask questions and talk. And here it's just kind of quiet, and so it's kind of strange. But if you would like to ask a question or anything else like that, please pop it in the chat. I do have my chat up so I can see it, and I won't necessarily be able to like reply because it's just me here today. It's just all on my own. But I can definitely shout it out and answer any questions that you might have. So thank you to anybody that's watching. I really appreciate it. This is my first live. I've never gone live before, and I really wanted to try to have a couple of paintings that I'm putting together a series of paintings, and they're quite a bit larger. And so I want to actually paint some of them live on YouTube, you know, over a couple of days. And so I wanted to get a little bit of practice in, a little bit of sneaky practice in. I didn't tell anybody I was going live. I just decided to go live. So I wanted to get a little bit of practice in and see what it was all about before I actually tackled a really big painting. And so I thought it'd be fun to do a Halloween painting, seeing how Halloween is tomorrow. And I'm sure everybody's getting excited about getting their costumes ready and all that fun stuff. All right, so I've kind of lost some of my edges in here, so I'm actually just going to go back in with my shadow value, and I'm just going to reestablish some of this in here because I want to make sure that I have this nice cast shadow in here, because that's what's going to make it look like a gradient and a cast shadow. It's the fact that I've got a sharp edge there, so you notice how that just better defines that popped up edge. And then as well too, there's another one that comes up here. And then another one on this side. Alright, so again, I'm trying my very hardest not to get too swept up in the details, but it's incredibly difficult. So I just want to manipulate it until it's absolutely perfect, but that's not what we're going for. And actually this shadow, there's my shadow brush, is actually comes right up to here. So I want to make sure I establish that. Okay. And then I can come in with the light here and add that, and then there's also a nice pop of light values from the pumpkin that's there. So is that, no, we still need to add some of that value in here. So I'm going to go back to my kind of this color in here, and I want to establish this area because we have another transition from light into shadow as we go through this area here. So let's actually move up a little bit darker. Kind of come across like this. There we go. I'm trying not to, I feel like this looks very messy and very chaotic, but it's okay. It's going to come together. I got to keep telling myself it's okay. It's just in this stage. It's just in the ugly stage a little bit. We'll get there. Okay, so this color, I did want to bring it all the way across here on the bottom. And again, this is kind of a awkward. I would twist my canvas typically, but we'll do the best we can. All right. I don't want to get too muddy with this, otherwise this will get very muddy, but just want to make sure I've got enough paint here on the canvas. Don't want any of those dots of canvas showing through. All right. And then I think I'm actually going to add, let me pull this a little bit bigger again and double check. Yeah, I do want to add just a little bit of this darker, slightly darker orange value just in here, just to again help establish this edge. Because this side is quite a bit lighter on this pumpkin, so I want to make sure that I have some transitional values in here just to keep it interesting. And then I feel like that's right. Where else do we need to establish some lines? So we've got a line coming up here. So I'll get that one in. And again, I haven't moved up to my brightest values yet. I'm still kind of building these ridges, but we do have a bit of a ridge comes down there. Also, oops, I picked up some darker paint, so I'm just gonna wipe that off my brush. Again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Can definitely answer any questions while I'm here live, might as well. And this kind of comes down like this. Again, I'm going to have to go back and just reestablish all of my sharp edges. Just to get my form back, but I feel like that's looking pretty decent. There are a couple of ridges here. I'm just going to go in with my shadow values because it's really bothering me. And just reestablish some of this in here. And this here kind of comes up like that. There we go. Not afraid to go back in and rework anything that needs to be reworked. If I see it and it needs to be fixed, I'll just go in and fix it. Okay, so let's move a little bit lighter. Grab a new brush because I don't want any contamination. Orange is one of those colors that's very easy to contaminate, so I want to make sure that I'm using a new brush. And I'm going to pick up a nice, where is it here? A nice square brush. So this brush helps to lay the paint in a little bit thicker. It picks up a little bit more brush, or a little bit more paint, sorry. So let's go in and first, why is there, I obviously didn't clean this brush very well. There's a little bit of dark value in there, so I'm glad I tested that first. Make sure my brush is clean, because this is a nice vibrant bright yellow and I don't want it to be contaminated, or bright orange, sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna go in and start laying this in. We actually need to create a little bit of an admixture. It's a little bit too bright. We don't kind of want to go that bright just yet. So I want to stair step my way. There, that's feeling a bit better. All right. I'm just making sure that I kind of rub my paint into the canvas, make sure that it's actually covering. I don't want any dots of that canvas showing through. It's a real easy way to ruin a painting pretty quickly, is to just have those dots of the canvas show through. All right. See, I always know I kind of freak out, but then it comes together when you start laying in the light values. It's like, okay, no, I was right on I was on the right track. It's on the right track. It's gonna be okay. All right. Now, paying attention to what's happening on the nose. Need to mix a little bit more of this intermediate value. So I want to establish nice sharp edge because it's the cut off of the nose, and so I want to make sure that we've got a nice ridge on there. So I'm just going to wiggle it. See how I can get a nice edge. And then this comes in here and cuts right through. Here we go. All right. So now I do want to, just want to try it and see, because I want to make sure that my values are good. I'm going to add a little bit of a brighter, a little bit of a brighter area up in here, just to kind of create some, just a little bit of a ridge that happens there. Okay, yeah, I think we're okay. I think we're on the right track. I think we're on the right track. Just if I can get this step pop color just a little light there. All right, let's keep building this up. I hope you can see it on screen. It may be a little hard to tell, but we're getting some nice texture now in those lights, which is just really exciting to see that starting to come together. All right, so we're moving up quite a bit. Let me make sure that we're I want to make sure that I'm getting all of these lights before I jump too fast. I don't want to jump too fast in my values. I want to make sure that I'm getting everything into place before I make that leap into some of my brightest lights. So, trying to be patient. It's hard. It's hard. I don't want to be patient. I just want to see the results right away. Right away. Go. And again, I want to make sure that I'm getting these nice sharp ridges here because it's kind of that carved. I want to give it that carved look, right? It's not too many straight necessarily edges, but they're kind of nice and ridged. So cool. All right, it's coming together. It's coming together. We're gonna get there, guys. For anybody, I don't even know how long I've been live for, so whoever's still here, kudos. And for those who have just joined, welcome. I'm painting this pumpkin for some fun Halloween decor. And I wanted to try going live. I've never gone live before, and so I wanted to try it out, see how it works, see how I feel about it, see what works and what doesn't. Hopefully you're getting some enjoyment or entertainment out of this. This has been kind of fun. All right, I need to, where's my yellow? I need to mix just a little bit of extra paint. When you paint like this with a lot more texture and stuff like that, it definitely eats through your paint quite a bit faster. So I want to make sure that I have enough to really keep these lights nice and vibrant. But I need just a touch more. Here I can move so you can see what I'm doing. Just adding a little bit more yellow to this here just to lighten this up. And I actually have this bright orange, which was too light. It was too bright of a value. It wasn't quite the right color mixture, but I've been using it to bump up the chroma when I need it in my color mixtures for the lights here. So just want to make sure that I'm keeping within the values, lighten this up just a little bit more. Here we go. Keep laying this in here. Now I really have to kind of see where the values in here, where they really kind of sit, because I've probably gone a little too light, but I bet you I could actually see if I add them at this stage, how bright those look in that area. If that's too light, maybe a little bit. It's quite a bit more yellow. Maybe just grabbing a little bit of this value just to kind of muddy this up just slightly, because it is kind of a slightly muddier value. Okay. I don't know, we'll sit with that and see how I feel about it. See how I feel about it. Don't want it to be too light. You can always go in with some shadow value. I might go in with some shadow value later and just kind of like pull it a little bit darker in some areas there, but I'm going to sit with it for a little bit, finish off the pumpkin, see how I feel. Okay, so we're going to keep moving through this here. Laying this down. Oh, hello, Victoria. Hi, Timothy. Thank you so much. I'm loving this orange too. It's very timely, very pumpkin. Yeah, absolutely. The texture, when you start adding texture, and I find that if you add texture everywhere, it really gets overwhelming, and then it's hard to see kind of what, like, to bring your attention to something. But when you use it sparingly, like in the lights, then it really starts to like liven up the painting a lot. And so I love using it in the lights, and then especially with some of those brightest highlights, really go in there with some nice thick paint. I find it just, it adds so much to a painting, and makes it just so much more dynamic. All right, so this is getting a little bit lighter. I want to grab some slightly lighter values in here, kind of lay those in here so they kind of get kind of muddied around. I love playing in oranges, and sometimes they can be very intimidating. Sometimes they can be difficult to paint, because sometimes they get a little bit muddy, or it's hard to like keep that balance of when it looks realistic and when it looks really like plastic and fake. But I always find that adding just a touch of black just kind of takes it down from that plastic fake feel, more into the realm of realism. So I'm always scared to add a little bit of black to my oranges, but I find it really helps. All right, so again, we just want to establish this edge in here, really get that nice ridge in there, like it's a nice carved pumpkin. It's really cool to see this, like I can see it coming to life on my palette, or my canvas, but also seeing it come to life on screen is really cool too. Okay, and then we're gonna keep adding this in here. And this is just eating up a lot of paint, but it's delicious. And these flowers are gonna go on top of it, so it's okay if I go over my lines here a little bit. Just want to make sure that I don't have any canvas showing through there. And again, this edge makes it quite difficult because I kind of have to twist here, but I want to make sure that I get a nice, oops, whoop, didn't mean to knock over my whole setting. Just want to make sure that I get a nice established edge here. And I can always go back in. I mean, this is all wet. I'm working in oils, so I can definitely go in and reestablish my edge here, but make sure I take away any contamination that's happening there. So thank you so much for everybody that's joined. If you've just recently joined, this is my first live. This is something I've never done before. I've never gone live on YouTube before, and this was on my bucket list, and today I thought I really had a hankering for painting. I just wanted to get at my easel, and I thought, you know what, well, let's just do it. Let's just go live and just try it. So this was really kind of a little bit spur of the moment, but also something I've had on my mind to do for quite some time. So thank you so much for joining my first live. It's very cool, very exciting. And I'm hoping to do more of this in the coming year. I've got a couple of really big gallery paintings that I am creating, and I really want to paint them live, because I think it would just be so fun to share that experience and paint them live and take questions and get a chance to share content that way. Sometimes, as some of you who are followers of this channel, and I just want to give a shout out to all of my followers that have continued to watch videos over these last 2 years when I've been less consistent with posting videos. It was just so time consuming to try to create videos, and so I thought, well, maybe let's try to shortcut that process by going live. And getting an opportunity to paint some stuff together will hopefully be able to, a way that I can continue to create content in a much more efficient way, and continue to keep the channel going, because I absolutely love I love YouTube and I love being on YouTube and creating videos, just haven't had the time to be able to do it. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a fun new way. So if you're enjoying this live, please just let me know. Please let me know, and I'd love to hear feedback. I love that there's some people watching, which is very exciting. And yeah, I'm gonna hopefully go live quite a bit more this year as I paint some of my paintings. Oh, well, Victoria, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm glad you were able to catch my painting live too. That's very exciting. I'm very thankful that you're here and that you're talking in the chat. It's great to hear that people are here. Like I mentioned, I've gone live before in other forums, and usually there's like people can throw on their microphone and they can chat, whereas this is just slightly different because it's just the chat, but we'll get used to it. We'll get used to it. All right, it's really starting to come to life now. Absolutely, that's exciting. So I just want to add just a touch more yellow here, just for some of my brighter highlights. And I think for tonight, I'm just gonna finish off the actual pumpkin, and then I might do the flowers or something like that a different day. I've been live for quite some time now, getting a little tired. Want to eat my supper too, so I think I'll probably do the flowers on a different day. All right, so I gotta be careful because I don't actually have a lot of these light values down at the bottom here. They're actually more up here, so I want to make sure that I'm gonna have to add some of the darker values in there. I got all excited. I stopped paying attention. Okay, here we're putting some of our highlights, and I'm just kind of trying to vary my strokes, trying not to be too patterned with it. I noticed that my brain loves a good pattern. So if I'm not paying attention, I'll notice that I'm putting all of my strokes in the exact same way, and then it starts to look, it takes you out of that kind of organic feel of it. And so I always have to be careful that I'm not going in the same direction all the time. All right, so we got some highlights there, and then I also want to grab this ridge over here. Ridge of that pumpkin, and we'll maybe just grab this in here, and just want to establish this. It's actually slightly darker. Just where this ridge is, just to kind of reestablish and really kind of continue to create that form, right? I do want it to still look like a pumpkin. I want it to look like it's got its ridges and that you can see the different ridges, the way the light's moving over each of those ridges. So I want to make sure I'm still keeping that form in place. Okay. So again, I wanted to make sure, actually before I move on from my highlights, let's pull this slightly lighter values in here as well too, just a little bit. And we do have some highlights, so let me do this here so you can see I'm just adding a little bit of titanium white. Sorry if this is slightly off of the camera here. Let's see if I can move that. I'm just adding some titanium white to my light value here just to create a highlight. I don't ever want to just use simply titanium white. Usually the highlights are not actually as light as we think they are. Oftentimes we end up lightening them way too much. And so I want to make sure that I'm not going too bright with them, but that they are light. Because usually titanium white, if you have something like this, where when you think about the color that I have of my light is actually this value in here, right at the bottom here, if you can see that, and it's actually not that bright, right? It's actually really quite dull when you're looking at the difference between this value here and titanium white. So there's quite a leap there still from this all the way to titanium white. So I don't want my highlight to be white because that's going to really bring it out of that realism. So I just added a little bit of white to that, and I want to grab a really nice stiff brush. Usually for my highlights, I like to use an old brush. You can see this one here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's really nice and frayed, and it's quite stiff. There's probably a lot of paint that's in there that I wasn't able to wash out, and I find that those are really great for putting in highlights. So I just grab it like this, and I'm gonna hold my brush like this rather than like a brush. I'm holding it just like this, and I'm gonna make sure that I get lots of paint on that brush, and then I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna just gently kind of kiss the canvas here with a little bit of this to create some of those highlights. And as soon as I start to see that I'm losing some of my light, right, I'm losing some of that paint, it's starting to blend with some of the values underneath, then I just go in and I'm just gonna pick up more paint. With this, when you're working in like thick paint like this, you always wanna make sure that you're grabbing lots of paint on that brush, and then some of the highlights kind of come up in here as well too. Let's again want to make sure that I'm varying my strokes so they're not all the same. And I just want to pull that just slightly further down here, something like that. Cool. All right. I got into my highlights before I actually finished my painting. Before I finished my pumpkin. Okay, where are we at? Let's go back to this because we had some darker values down in here. We weren't quite as light. I got a little bit ahead of myself. So let's do that, and then finish out this pumpkin here. Whoop, picked up some of that background, although I'm not hating the way it looks, so I might just leave that happy little accident in there. We'll see. Okay. Now I want to be careful what's happening here. We've kind of got a bit of a gradient, so I can actually probably come in here with a slightly darker value, create just a little bit of an admixture. So I got a little contaminated, so I'm just going to grab just a little bit more, and again I'm going to switch the way that I'm holding my brush. I'm no longer holding it like this. I'm now holding it like this. You can see that I've got quite a bit of paint on there, and I'm just going to lay it on top just to kind of remove some of that contamination that happened there. And see, it just nicely wipes it all away. And I actually don't think I like that background that got onto the pumpkin there just a little bit. All right, so now I'm going to jump up to, where's my, just get in some of these brighter lights, and I actually want to see if I use some of this. This is the light values that I kind of used up in here. I'm gonna see if I actually just pop that. No, I feel like this color actually and that little highlight in there are the same, so maybe I'll leave this and that to be the same. I think that's a good idea. Just trying to like think about my value relationships. So what is the relationship of this color in the eye compared to this in here? And when I squint my eyes, they look very similar. So I want to make sure that I keep that the same. And then this light in here is actually quite a bit lighter, and so is this light in here. So just trying to think about how the values relate to each other when we look at them together. Now, where did my palette knife go? Here we go. All right, so I need, again, a lot more yellow. We've just used a lot of yellow in this painting, which is awesome. I love a good yellow. I'm just gonna, as you can see, my yellow is like almost done. It's like flat as a pancake, but we're gonna get every morsel out of it that we can. Because while Old Holland paint is very good quality paint, it is expensive, but it does last a long time. It goes far because it's so highly pigmented that you don't need much of it in order to, and it lasts a long time. Like, it goes really far on the canvas. Okay, so I've got that yellow, but I want to, I think, actually add just a bit of white to it, just to kind of take it down and dull it out just slightly. We'll see how it looks on the canvas. Okay, let me grab a smaller brush because we're working in a slightly smaller area. I have so many brushes because I have just used a lot of brushes, but I don't ever throw out brushes because there's always a brush that you can use. Like I said before, my scruffy brushes that have that I've used a lot, they're nice and stiff. I like to use them for my highlights, so I always keep all of my brushes. So I'm always like in my brush stash looking for like the right one for the right job. You know, there's some that are just really great for like scrubbing in the background. I have one that is probably my oldest brush, and this is the one I use to scrub in the background, and it's really stiff. There's so much paint built up in it, and it's really frayed, but man, can it scrub. And that's what I use to create this background. So I don't ever throw out my brushes. I don't recommend people throw out their brushes. Keep them, you can use them for something. But I do like to find my newer brushes when I'm trying to look for something that's got, like, I want to be careful about my edges there. So I'm trying to find a nice flat brush that doesn't have too much wear on it. There you go, this is a good one. Okay, so let's see if this color, how that's gonna sit. Now you can't see it on screen, but it's quite vibrant. So maybe just gonna dull it out just slightly. There we go. All right, and again, I want to establish an edge. Try not to pick up too much of my shadow value. Now this edge here is quite sharp because it's kind of a curve in the form, right? The transitions from light into shadow based on the way that this pumpkin was carved. I'm just picking up a lot of new paint because anytime I get a little bit of contamination on my brush, I want to keep this color pretty pure. Now this color also actually goes up in comes up here. I'm just going to grab it from this side and try to swing it up. There we go. And we also have a pop of this right on this edge as well too. Just where the light caught a little bit of the flesh of the pumpkin. So I'm just going to try to get that in without too much contamination. There we go. And then I'll just come in with my shadow value. Just clean that up a little bit. There we go. Cool. Although I feel like it's sitting, let's marry it to that edge. There we go. Okay. And then before, when I was painting, I do feel like this edge in here is still too light in value, so I actually want to go in with some of that shadow value before I pop in that this highlight that's happening in here, I want to darken this out just a little bit. So I'm actually gonna use the brush I just used with my shadow value in it. And I'm just gonna muddy this up just a little bit. Maybe that's too dark. Go slightly lighter here. And I want to kind of just muddle it a little bit because it is kind of the inside flesh, right, of the pumpkin. I don't want it to be, it does have a texture to it. So we're going to kind of give it a little bit of texture. There you go, that feels good. And then I just want to, let's go in maybe and establish this highlight, and then I'll work back from this side to clean it up just a little bit. And there is a little bit of transparency that's happening because again, this is a glass jar that was inside of the pumpkin, and there was a little bit of these light values that were kind of rippling through here. So I'm gonna maybe just dapple these in and see if they just kind of just sit in there a little bit, see how they feel. Hopefully it feels a little bit like it's vibrating. Now I'm gonna grab a dry brush, nice fluffy dry brush, and I'm just going to actually blend this edge here just so that it's not quite so sharp, because it is kind of a, there you go, it's meant to be a highlight, not necessarily a sharp edge. I want to kind of look like it's, that's a bad habit, don't put your brushes in your mouth. Yeah, I'm going to maybe come in with actually a little bit of a darker light value in here and just create a little bit of a glow. That way that value is not sitting entirely on its own. Again, don't want to get rid of all my dappling effect. Cool. Okay, let's stick with that. All right. Now I just want to go in with, again, this is a little bit lighter, so let's go in with this. All right, who's still with me? Is anybody still here? Anybody still here? Let's go in and lighten this. Establish this area. Yeah, I'm happy with the way this one is coming out. It's looking good so far. I'm just loving the textured effect of the pumpkin. I think it looks really cool. I'm really glad that I loosened up a little bit today and decided to add some texture. Right. I'm going to go in, there's a really nice like bright pop of orange that's right in there, so I want to make sure that I get my kind of these lighter values in here, and then I want to make sure I get that nice hit of orange in there. Trying to kiss up to that line but not contaminate it. Going back to my palette a lot just to make sure that I I'm not accidentally contaminating this nice bright, vibrant color. Cool. Well, I am having a lot of fun here today painting this one. I'm sure glad I did this. I'd been itching to paint. It had been a while since I'd had a painting day and didn't want to. I have a couple that I'm working on, but they're very intense, very like tightly controlled paintings, and I just needed to let loose. All right, just establishing that edge. Again, I don't want to push it too far down. It really is just a bit of a slip here, but I may have to come back in with that shadow value and just reestablish it on the other side. I'm so glad you're enjoying this, Victoria. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. All right, so I want to lighten this up just a little bit. So you can see this is really quite chromatic. It's quite yellow, but this area is actually quite a bit duller simply because it's like the brightest highlight. But I want to get this pop of orange in here, and then I'm going to add a little bit of white to my mixture to lighten it up and kind of dull it out just to create that really nice vibrant highlight. But before I do that, well, this one's pretty dull too. So maybe I'll just get a little bit of this color into here, and then I can lighten up just some of it. No, oops. Right. Oh, my kids are coming home, so better hurry up. Oh. All right. Cool. Okay, adding a little bit of titanium white. I'm almost out of my white. I've clearly run out of a lot of my tubes. You see this one too is another flat pancake, so let's see what I can squeeze out of it. Try and get just a little bit more white. Now it's all over my hands. All right, so adding quite a bit more white to this, just to, again, I don't ever want to just like use titanium white as a highlight. It oftentimes doesn't look realistic, but I want to get it quite a bit lighter than what I have it here. And I'm going to move again to this kind of a grip because I want to, you can see how much paint I actually have loaded on there. I just want to establish that kind of bright, vibrant, like ring that's in that area there, just where this highlight is. I'm starting to see a little bit of contamination, so I'm just going to wipe my brush and keep picking up paint. And then just scumble some of this in here because it's kind of like a little bit rough, right? It looks like you can see maybe I'll go in with some slightly darker values here as well too, and just kind of create a little bit of texture in the flesh of the pumpkin. And then I forgot, I want to get that nice pop of orange in there. So let's see if we can. It's going to be contaminated. Let's get quite a bit more paint on the brush. And just push back into it now with my yellow. There we go. Cool. And then again, I just want to put a little bit of some slightly darker values, just kind of in mix this, just to create just a little bit of texture in the eye. And then I'm just going to go in with my, this is going to be the last thing I do, I promise. Go in with my shadow here and just reestablish this edge. There we go. Cool. And then this edge too, I kind of lost this edge. There. And there we go. There is my pumpkin. So I think we're going to end it there. Thank you everybody who joined the live today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of my very first live. I truly, truly appreciate you. Hoping to do more of these lives in the future. And I hope you enjoyed seeing this pumpkin come to life. I'm going to do, I think, another live while I do the flowers. And I'm kind of interested to see kind of what different textures I can play around with there, what I choose to keep soft and what I decide to add a lot of texture to. So if that interests you, definitely let me know. But thank you everybody that was here tonight. And I hope everybody has a good and safe Halloween, and I'll see you soon. All right, thanks friends.